KHANTEHNT,
where Digibro and Best Guy Ever talk about current shows as they're going. We just watched the 5 latest episodes of Cautious Hero.
Indeed.
I don't know how a 5th one snuck in there. I thought we were on track to do this one with 4 episodes this week.
It was that
Apparently
B-Stars delay that got us, I think.
I guess so. So, yeah, Cautious Hero has continued to go, and I'm still watching it, so I guess it's not gone to shit. We were cautiously optimistic before,
Indeed.
and I feel about the same way about the show as I did last time, but
Yeah.
it has definitely taken a lot of interesting and strange directions that I did not expect.
That's true. There's been a couple of facets where the show it's continued to impress me by its commitment to like showing like truly horrific violence at various points, which is a plus because my instinct is to think that shows like this are gonna like kind of pussy out and not have like seemingly real consequences for things, and then they're gonna be like, oh no, everyone gets out fine, nothing bad ever happens, and nothing bad ever happens to characters that matter in the show, basically.
Yeah.
But I mean, there is slaughter, there is killing, murder.
Let's jump into that a little bit, because I've seen some of the talk about this show is one of the complaints I've seen people have is that there is some real tone whiplash in this show. And
okay.
it definitely, like, whether I think that's a good or bad thing, there's lots of shows that I love that have been accused of tone whiplash. Some cases, I think that that's part of the fun of the show. In this show, there's definitely an element of it that I enjoy because, yeah, like you're saying, I like that it can be dark and gritty, and it seems like the way that the author went into this is like, all right, I'm going to make it so my isekai protagonist, like, he's the cautious hero, but that's important because he's fighting the most horrific world, the most fucked, worst isekai world ever. So, like, in order for it to be conveyed that this world is legitimately worse than the other isekai worlds we're used to seeing, it has to be really fucked and violent. There has to be, like, you know, almost everyone has to be dead, which is the case. It's like 70% of the fucking world is under the Demon King's control. People are regularly killed, and there's moments where it even seems like it's pushing the violence just to absurd heights as a joke. Like, there's the scene where we meet the 4th or 3rd of the demon commanders or whatever, the 4th general. And he seems to be like a relatively regular guy who lives in this village and had a wife and kid, and he cuts off the heads of his wife and child and uses them and like burns down his village so he can use them in a satanic ritual to summon a demon. And it's like, what the fuck? Like,
none of
that's
that
some
seemed
ninja
like a
resurrection shit.
Yeah, and none of that
fucked.
was a joke or like the characters were horrified, we were horrified. I feel pretty strongly that's probably the biggest moment people felt like, where the fuck did this come from? But I mean, and you know, and it's true. That was definitely the worst part. And the part where like the bug guys, the Beelzebub guy and his flyboys are lifting people and doing their reverse fireworks where they drop them on the ground and let the blood splatter. That is a pretty horrific thing that maybe you wouldn't see in like a less inhospitable world or whatever. But like when we think about the actual number of casualties that we're seeing here, I mean, in your standard like JRPG type world, for example, like the that reverse firework thing where they drop the soldiers up, like the death count in that situation is only like 100 people. That's like compared to the hordes and hordes of monsters that are slaughtering presumably like everyone out at the rest of the world. That's like nothing. But it's the way it's presented to us in this scene that is particularly horrific.
Well, and here's the thing. I appreciate the ability to have those horrific scenes, but the way that particular scene does play out is like the build up to it. There are jokes interspersed in, and this show has a way of it tries to play its scenarios straight in terms of the presentation. So like even if the whole point of the scenario is that it's going to be comically subverted, and even if there are jokes along the way, if the tone of the scene is serious, the music is very, like, overbearing, loud, I would say obnoxious. Like, I think the music for the more serious scenes, it takes it too far, because some of the jokes don't land. Like, they're doing, like, little tiny jokes of facial expressions saying goofy things, but you've got this overpowering dramatic music that kind of takes the weight out of the jokes. And then all of a sudden, all these fucking people die, and you're like, oh, this scene, I understand why the music is so dark now. The scene is actually really serious, but like, why were there all these jokes in there and that, you know, in the build up to it? It does feel a little bit like off kilter, the way that it goes between these serious and jokey moments. But there are other times where I really thought episode 6 was an example of like the tone changing throughout and the situation being taken seriously, but ultimately, you know, having a fun and well done resolution. Like that episode, the emotions were all taken seriously, and it wasn't cutting away to gags quite so much. It was more like, you know, the situation actually was kind of serious. And
this being the dragon sword ritual that they were doing, right? Yeah.
When they're going to sacrifice the young dragon girl, and like you see the veins bulging in her neck, it like really looks like she's gonna die from this crystal. Like if our hero hadn't thought ahead, and that episode does a brilliant thing, which is, of course, in the scene where everybody's eating, drinking the wine and eating the crackers, and the children give one to the hero. I was like, there's no way he ate that shit.
I was surprised he even put it in his mouth, like, at all, because, you know, some bits might have gotten down his throat. So, but I mean, I thought the exact same thing. Even because you see in the next cut, he's there dabbing his mouth. I thought there was a 100% chance that's him spitting it out, and so it was. Yeah.
So, you know, obviously that was gonna, like, that was put in there so that we knew throughout this whole scene that eventually this is gonna reach a point where everybody gets paralyzed except for him. So, like, all of this drama is unfolding, and it's seeming more and more serious and more like she's definitely got him. But the whole time, you know, in your mind, you've got this ace in the hole. I know my dude did not eat that cookie, dude. I know he didn't eat it. So as soon as as soon as we get to that moment, the tide is gonna turn, and sure enough, that's when it does. I big like hero shit.
I like that in that scene, like, even the children are fucking complicit in this, like, murder scheme, basically. Yeah. That really feels like it's, like, this whole world is, like, the masterclass difficulty, like, beyond anybody else. It reminds me a little bit of, in Homestuck, one of the characters, Caliborn, like, the big final boss, he finds himself in a situation where, like, his version of the game, Spur, that everybody plays, is, like, exponentially harder than everybody else, and as a result, he has to be, like, exponentially more brutal and cutthroat, and it's kind of similar to what's going on here. But to this point of, like, the tonal whiplash, I didn't really quantify the feeling I had or was able to articulate it until you brought up that point. And now that we're talking about it, it does remind me of the feeling I had the one time that I really felt like the balance kind of felt off about the tension was with I forget the name of the girl, but not Restarte, that's the goddess, but that blue-haired captain lady who was also like the princess or something, like whatever her name was, who I liked initially. She's like the opposite of Seiya or whatever. She sees her platoon, like 100 of them at least, all murdered through the reverse firework thing. But then there's a situation where she herself is, like, picked up and carried in the air. And it was funny, considering the fact that so many of her men have just all been slaughtered. She had that aura of, like, there's no chance this character is in any danger, and she's not acting scared, really. It had not even occurred to me to consider that she might be in danger. And I think that that's kind of working counter to what I would have expected the narrative. It felt weird that the stakes felt so low, considering all the horrific things we had just seen. So this is a moment where, like, maybe the fact that when even in the last arc we kind of were tricked, at least, like, I didn't think the kid would die, but, like, they at least put him in a torture chair and tried to, like, that was good. That was bring real us stakes. A little bit closer, you know. And I mean, again, the girl looks like she's the pink haired girl looks like she's going to die, if not for the fact that we know the hero's going to pull it out. I thought that scene with the girl sacrifice, I thought was kind of the best formatted situation yet. Although I also really liked that ultimate Reaper summon, which was, like, seemingly like they had no way, but of course you had a plan for it. Yeah. Because the situation with the girl being sacrificed was, like, if it was just, you have to defeat this giant monster, I have no doubt he'll figure out a way. But the fact that it was time bound he had 3 minutes. He had 3 minutes to figure out a way to kill this bitch in order to save the girl. Like, it's very reasonable to think that there might be situations where he has even less time, like he hasn't had enough time to prepare. And so that was the first time I felt like, oh, we're actually getting close to a situation where the cautious hero, like, might actually be backed into a corner. And, like, the thing that's revealed later about, like, oh, he had destroyed the Dragon Lady's wings beforehand, I was like, I mean, I get that he did that. Did he really, like, know he would need to do that or whatever? Like, you can't plan for literally everything they might do. That's not a big deal. That made sense in general. But I like that we're putting more and more ridiculous situations for the hero to deal with, because we need to, in order to keep us at all, any tension in the narrative. And they're doing a decent job of escalating that, and I think.
I think a big part of what this author wanted here, this is one of those, like, have your parody and eat it too kind of stories. And what I mean by that, I'm going to compare it to the light novel that I wrote, because we both took a similar approach, which is, like, wanting to have a story that simultaneously is just making fun of the genre, but also is indulging in the parts of it that you think are cool. So, like, you've got this hero who, you know, even though this story is way over the top, and obviously he's always going to save the main characters, and it's a comedy at the end of the day, you know, the cooler parts of the story are that it can be dark, violent, and he has to come up with these really crazy-ass schemes to beat the bad guys. And the schemes, they can be funny, but they don't necessarily have to be to work. It's like just the complexity of it. The idea that he was super prepared and that's why he solved it is entertaining in its own right, because we really see this character as, like, we're buying into the cautious hero idea. It's been played up well enough that now we want to see how is his cautiousness going to get him out of this situation. And it doesn't necessarily have to be, like, ha-ha funny, you know?
Yeah.
And, I mean, like, yeah, anyway, you can talk.
Well, I was going to say, the fact that, like, so, like, on its face, we don't have context at the very beginning of the narrative for, like, how difficult is an S-rank difficulty world anyway? What does that really mean? Like, that could just be, you know, there's, like, a couple levels higher for, like, the final bosses. But the things that we're seeing, like, and now's a good time to bring up, like, the Reaper guy. So that summoner, the third general, whatever, sacrifices a whole village and his family, super fucked up, even kills himself. This guy's obviously dedicated to his fucking craft, to summon, like, this Reaper that, like, is literally like a glitch. It's like a glitched monster that, like, cannot be destroyed through any conventional means. And this is exactly the sort of thing that even the hero, like, isn't ready for in terms of just raw stats or whatever. So he has to find alternative means. Like, when I saw that, it's the fact that every time that the hero, like, gets to a new arc or a new, like, you know, whatever kind of thing he's trying to overcome, we see him returning to the divine realm, and we see him moving up the ladder of, like, which gods are able to even help this guy, like, beat whatever current enemy is in front of him. And that Reaper, finally, we're at literally the highest tier of, it was the god of destruction, Valkyrie or whatever. He had to, like, finagle a situation where she used her powers to destroy this thing, because we see the other gods just try and fail, and every single person has failed to defeat this thing. So now that we're at, like, and that was the third guy, basically the third heavenly king or whatever it's called, we're already at the strongest god now had to use their strongest ability, which would kill a normal human who used it, in order to beat this thing. So, like, I feel like we're really getting a sense of the stakes here, which is, it's kind of doing exactly what you said. We've left behind kind of just the expectation of we're just defeating, or we expect the hero to be able to easily dispatch everything without much difficulty. We're having to really plan on, like, a meta sense, and like, we're having to go beyond just normal RPG mechanics in order to overcome the sort of enemies that are coming up against the hero. And it's doing all this meta stuff in a very satisfying way, much like a normal RPG would be, except we've got this extra element of, we know it's so much beyond what would normally be expected to be. It's justifying all his caution, and it's pretty satisfying, not just from the comedy element, but from the kind of shonen growth protagonist element as well. So it's working together pretty well as it's been going on. It has not disappointed me so far.
It's fascinating for me to watch as somebody who had to deal with the same issue of the power scaling in my book, because I too was going for this, like, the main character starts with like city class level power. Like, he could destroy a city with one attack, and he has to by the end be at the level where he could like alter the universe, you know? So like, in order for him to reach that level, it's like, well, anything you could even do on Earth is going to be below, like, you know, a fairly low level on that scale. So, like, it's quickly going to have to reach a point where there's not much sense in them just, like, adventuring through the world, where their friends are really not going to be able to help them at all. So, like, right away, we start to deal with the kids who were already underpowered, and it's like, okay, well, if our main character is continually escalating, they need to escalate just as quickly. So they go through, like, rapid growth to where the boy can now turn into a dragon, the girl can, like, speed and slow people down to extreme degrees. And even then, it still seems like they might be useless because the main character grows even more powerful at the end of the most recent episode that might eclipse them. You know, like, it's hard to even know who could keep up with him, or if the joke will always be how far behind they are. But, like, yeah, to have an enemy show up at the realm of the gods, and there's a bit of dialogue between the main character and Valkyrie that kind of indicates he may be just stronger than all the gods other than her already. That he's literally a second to the head god at this point. If that's true, it's just absolutely insane, you know?
It seems to be.
Who knows where this is going to reach, you know?
And, you know, now that I really am thinking about it, the more I think about it, the more this story reminds me of Homestuck more than any other series, because that's also a comedy, and it really is a story about, like, people attempting to conventionally play a game, but, like, things go so off the rail, like, the particular, like, session of their game, which is exactly kind of like the particular world that our heroes are sent to. Things have escalated in a sense that couldn't have been predicted and isn't the way the game is, like, supposed to be played, such that, like, just for example, like, in these episodes, maybe we'll talk about this more, but, like, there's things like acquiring, like, the legendary sword that can slay the Demon King, and getting, like, the legendary armor that allows you to, like, survive fighting the Demon King. Both of those things get destroyed, or they're not able to get anymore, in the same way that, like, in the Homestuck sessions, like, things don't go conventionally the way they're supposed to, and we're gonna have to find, like, weird meta ways to get around these weaknesses or whatever in order to presumably, like, deal damage and win the game. And I gotta say that now that I'm thinking about that, I'm very much looking forward to seeing, like, what they're going to come up with as strategies in order to, like, especially achieve those things and harm the Demon King, who presumably has got to be something even beyond what we've seen, like, with this Reaper summon. You know, presumably that's, you know, we're just going to escalate more and more. And now that the hero has destruction magic that goes, like, beyond causality and time and space and whatever, presumably that's going to be part of the equation to some degree. I don't know. It's kind of exciting. I've been legitimately enjoying these last several episodes, though.
So these last 5 episodes kind of thread together 3 or 4 plot lines across them. You've got the plot about, like, basically meeting other gods and goddesses in this realm in order to find someone who can train our characters. So, you know, we have that Cerseus guy who he had tormented before, who hilariously he sort of heals this man's soul by giving him a weaker person to train, which brings him back to the blade, which simultaneously, like, it's like kind of heartwarming because this guy had been so tormented before, but also it paints him as kind of a jackass, so it's kind of like you don't feel sorry for him
because he only wants to train weak people. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So great tie up there, I thought, with his character. But then you have the weird Yandere goddess, who the main character,
Adanella, goddess of war.
I believe he just accidentally fucked up a cake she had made or something, and she got super pissed.
No,
Is that what it was?
Okay, first of all, let me take this one, did you? Because Adanella is the surprise favorite character of mine in the show. I mean, I love the main hero.
Somehow I'm not surprised.
She is so... I don't know. Her arc, okay, she starts as the weird, creepy girl, and then as opposed to, it's juxtaposed, of course, against Cerseus or whatever, who attempted to train the hero, and he got broken by it because he's just so weak compared to the hero, dispirited him. The next level of training is this goddess of war, who's like a weird, lolly little girl, And she's like the hex maniac, kind of weird, creepy vibe. Only, she's a lolly or whatever. Yeah. And she's gonna teach him to do this eternal blade technique, or whatever that she's got. And like while working with her, instead of like breaking her spirit the way that it did with Cerseus, it slowly made her not only fall in love with him. That would be one thing, but it makes her like change her appearance, like literally take a bath and clean herself up and think about like how to improve her femininity in order to attract this guy. And like the pinnacle of that arc is when she goes full, like, it's literally like Stocking from the Chocolat episode of Panty and Stocking. One of my favorite episodes of anything ever, where she's gone in full like flowery garb. She's now like become like this beautiful like princess character, and she just wants to, she literally says, please take me with you. I want to be on your team now. Because obviously he mastered her technique. It was no problem at all. And she's just fallen in love with him because he's so attractive and charming and whatnot. And he rejects her, and then she goes full berserker mode, and there's that whole arc where he comes back and she forgives him.
I fucking zoned out for all of that.
How could you zone out on the literal best character of this entire batch of episodes?
They introduced so many characters, everything was going on. I don't know, man.
Well, I fucking love Adanella, and we should use this picture. I meant to send it to you beforehand. There's one picture of her that we should use as the thumbnail because it's the best picture in all of these episodes, and I'll give it to you later. She's wonderful. She's so wonderful.
Well, she comes back because they, at first, she just gets pissed off and they just kind of leave. And then when they come back and she finds out they're back, she's like, I'm going to fucking kill him. And all he has to do is pat her on the head.
Yep.
And she's completely forgiven him and is totally in love. She is basically his lapdog. I'm pretty sure the main character could put his dick in any of these goddesses if he felt like it.
I mean, okay, go on. I'll mention it later.
Well, I got to talk about Valkyrie because this was interesting to me. So Valkyrie is the most powerful goddess, and she basically wears next to nothing. She's wearing just like a couple of chains and like a bikini, and she's kind of butch, like she's real muscular, got kind of a lesbian haircut.
The lesbian vibe is there for sure. Groping.
She walks around groping the other goddesses and stuff. Well, it really made me think because like the goddesses.
Is he gonna cure her gay with his dick? Is that the thing you're wondering? Because I suspect it'll happen.
I mean, I think that she's bi at best,
least,
but but anyway, so these goddesses, they walk around like this because they're like all powerful, beautiful women, right? Like they can have their tits out because like what are you gonna do? But like this bitch, because she's so much more powerful than them, she just can kind of run roughshod and just play with their tits, and they seem to like it. Like every time she gropes a girl, or mentions it, they're blushing. They seem to enjoy it. She's all about just grabbing these random girls' titties. And it just made me think about like how horny most of these goddesses seem to be for the main character, particularly Restart. Like she wants his dick. And so like this girl is so like desperate being ignored by this guy all the time that when she gets grabbed by this other goddess, she's still into it. And it made me think that head goddess wanting to fuck the main character, she basically, it almost, like, we still don't really understand what they were doing together in bed, but in episode 9, she is on his dick, naked,
he
in bed.
says it's not sex, but I mean, I don't know what else the fuck it's supposed to be. It's training or something? I don't know.
I don't know if they were completing a magical circuit like in Fate, which is sex, but, whatever they were doing, it looks like he's fucking the head goddess to gain her powers, and just something about the idea that he can fuck the girl who is herself just able to grab all these girls' tits, which basically implies that he too could do that and get away with it, but he just is so focused on his mission that he's not even thinking about all this fucking goddess puss around him at all times.
I mean, that's definitely true. He's like the prime example of the, I don't know, like that what do you call it? That it's like the type of guy who's like so focused on the mission, he doesn't see all the girls like floundering around him for him.
I mean, I think he completely understands and could do it at any time. He just is like, I don't have time. I have to prepare. Like, he's just so noble, such an alpha Chad guy that he's not gonna fuck any of these thoughts who are running around, ogling him all day. He's like, I got other shit I gotta do. I can take care of this later.
That's definitely true, and on that front, while we're talking about this subject specifically, I very much enjoyed. I can't remember the exact joke, but there was a couple of moments, and one or two that I got like an actual laugh from, where this dynamic of Restart, like throughout, she so clearly like is into the main character, like she obviously loves him, has a crush on him, whatever it is, and but it's the way that she like we're in her head most of the time, and she'll think like the way she's like rationalizing to herself. Like, oh, when she gets I forget what it is. It's like he stops Valkyrie from groping her, and she thinks to herself, she's like, well, now I have to let him get to second base with me. It's really funny to watch her rationalize, and because it's forbidden between goddesses and humans to have sex or whatever. But the way that she's rationalizing how she will have to fuck this guy, there's just no other way, is really funny, and I love all of those kinds of jokes. Indeed. It's excellent.
So episode 5 and 6, we had introduced the one yandere goddess. Then it was mostly about the younger girl going to be sacrificed. I thought episode 6 was well done in terms of doing like a more serious arc. All the emotions were played straight. There's some, just some good scenes and stuff like that. And overall, it was a solid arc. Then we go back to the goddess realm. We pet the fucking one goddess, resolve that arc instantly. The next one was about the blue-haired girl who is leading this army. Like we said, 100 people get killed.
Rosalie.
Of her
name
men.
was Rosalie.
And her whole thing is that she just wants to rush in, and she considers that bravery. And there's a pretty hilarious scene where the main character just decides to start slapping the shit out of her over and over again because she keeps attacking him because he keeps assaulting her pride. And it just kind of goes to, like, he's literally demonstrating to her exactly what the problem is. It's like it wants to rush in because of her pride against an enemy she cannot beat. And no matter how many times she attacks, she will be defeated.
Feminism won't save you this time, Rosalie.
It's just like she keeps attacking and he keeps smacking her. And like she won't stop because she won't change. And I was kind of shocked that she does not undergo any change by the end of this arc. I don't know if that'll happen again.
I think it will happen at some point. I'm guessing. I don't know. Maybe relating to her dad.
I gotta say, I thought her and her army were the worst part of these episodes. Like,
I wanted to like her a lot, but she was just quite shit. Like, of a person, there was no learning. She had a bad attitude to the end, which was too bad.
The thing is, episode 7, like, the first half of it is all about, like, introducing her and her men, but as much as I enjoyed the scene of them actually, like, confronting each other and the slapping fit and all that, just the amount of buildup it took to get there, and I did not know why we were going down this road in the story. Like, why are we introducing soldiers, like regular people? Like, we've already established our main character is like way more powerful than anybody in this fucking army.
I think the answer is clear to that. I think like as soon as like I'm looking at a crowd of soldiers when we first get to the scene, and I'm like, there's a unique design. That person definitely matters exponentially more than all the other people here. It's just that I can tell she's a volume cover character. That's definitely what she is. And
that was weird about it because it's like nothing about this arc gave me the impression she was gonna do anything ever.
I think in the light novel she probably hid more, and she'll have like an arc later or something. That's my guess.
But like unless she becomes really strong for some reason, there's no reason she would contribute anything to this story where everybody's way the fuck more powerful already, you know? It's just kind of like, this is an odd character to introduce at this time in the story when we're mostly introducing gods and goddesses and, leveling up our main characters and all this shit. And now we got to go hang out with these regular scrubs. And, like, I understand this juxtaposition of, the girl who wants to rush in versus the cautious hero. He has some words about her and, like, but whatever. Like, when he goes in and saves her, she doesn't contribute anything to this fucking climax, It becomes entirely this other story about the Reaper and how it's stronger than all the goddesses, which is a way more interesting, plot going on. We already talked about that, basically. But that leads us into Valkyrie getting reintroduced. Now she's going to train our main character. She may or may not have fucked him. And then episode 5 comes along. And they go ahead and just bring out the 4th general right then and there Because
Episode
I was
9,
starting to
that
think
is.
like
yeah,
I was starting to think like we're on episode 9.
Mm-hmm.
That means there's only 3 more after this. Like, what's gonna be like? Are we gonna finish this world by the end of the season? You know,
we're getting there.
Like, are we gonna? And it seems like it because we already killed the 4th general. So what's left other than the Demon Lord for the next 3 episodes? You know, but like. Unexpectedly, there is apparently a great hero in this world who has never been mentioned.
The War Master.
He's an old man. He comes out. He fucking just cuts the 4th general to pieces in one go.
Mm-hmm.
No problem. Decimates the fucking army of monsters with an awesome sword slash.
Yep.
And then turns into a baby at the end. And the face that Restart makes, where her face turns into like a Picasso painting,
yes,
at the sight of the baby, was pretty hilarious.
That was great. And so they talk about like they said up to this point, and when he was mentioned, like when he was first introduced, episode 5 or 6 or whatever, like he can't leave the city due to circumstances, and this baby reversion thing appears to be that circumstance. So I think what's going to happen is that his daughter will somehow like inherit these abilities and will like she'll be the one to use them in some way. I kind of feel like that's why she's been introduced.
Wait, is the blue-haired girl his daughter?
Yes, that's his daughter.
Who she is?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know
understand.
that even then, like he destroyed a demon general in one slash. That's actually better than our character has done ever up to this point. So it seems like he might even be stronger than our main hero guy. He was level 90 or whatever, so that might be in fact true.
Right.
So I kind of feel like they introduce this guy, we show his powers, and that girl was set up to like pass the powers off to her so she can do something with them. I don't know how you pass powers or something, but that's just my guess. The fact that they're father and daughter, I don't know, partially makes me think that. Because this guy is not able to leave the city. He's obviously not, he's an old man. Old men are never important in anime. They always, get denigrated to the backseat or whatever. So I don't know where we're going with this, but he sure destroyed that 4th general. Do you think that they're going to do a thing next episode where that 4th general, as sometimes happens, will be like, he reforms, he'll be like, ooh, that was a powerful attack, but luckily I have my regeneration power. And then like the real fight begins with...
That would be funny if just because the main character didn't blow the pieces to smithereens that happened.
Oh, that's true.
But
that's
like,
true.
I think that's less likely. I think we're going to be exploring what's up with the baby first and foremost.
It is weird how strong this guy is. He's so unbelievably strong beyond like anyone else in the world. It's notable. But obviously we're going to get some backstory on him and some explanation.
Yeah, and I would say that it seems likely to me that because, again, there's 3 episodes left and we've already killed all 4 generals, so what's left but the Demon Lord? I feel like we gotta just jump into that. And I assume this is a continuing novel series. We already speculated on whether it would continue beyond just one world. I mean, who knows what could happen? All kinds of twists could happen. If you haven't read the books like we haven't, then no fucking idea.
I would be so
At this
stoked.
point, the story is
if we just
pretty
have like
unpredictable.
If we have a perfect like 12 episode, like actually wrapped up little story, maybe there's potential for continuing it because there's a couple plot threads. Beat the Demon Lord in some amazing way. I don't think this is going to happen, but if it did, we resolve this thing with the baby and the blue-haired lady. Maybe she gets some redemption or something. I don't know. And then there's the other plot thread that I was going to say this. This has basically been 100% confirmed to me that Arya, the other goddess, like the things she said, she 100% had Seiya like as her summoner guy in the past, and now like that was just made so clear through various lines of dialogue. And there's going to be some resolution on that plot thread perhaps, or maybe that'll be what brings us into the future or something for if there's like another season or something. But that's got to be addressed because we're at the top level of gods. We're at like the top level of all the heroes. All 4 generals are gone. All that's left is the Demon Lord. I would love just a 3 episode like satisfying conclusion to this battle or something. And I have no idea if that's going to happen or not. I don't know if the story is like gonna take us into other worlds or something, because this one feels like there's only a little life left in it. So yeah, I'll be very curious to see how it all wraps over the next couple episodes.
Oh, I also forgot about the Archer goddess arc.
Oh yeah, what's her face?
So he wanted to learn how to use guns essentially to shoot fast. There's an Archer goddess who trains him, but it turns out that she's a rampaging whore, I guess.
A nymphomaniac.
She really wants to fuck the main character. This comes, she just sort of unveils it at one point. She's pretty hot. But in the absence of him wanting to fuck, she will immediately go for the Shota instead. And
I respect that. She'll take whatever she can get.
You know.
And then of course
she just DTF, and they kick her ass pretty thoroughly. I love the scene where he shoots her through the eyes and mouth, and she just like
fucking
shoots
eyes.
the arrow.
Oh, that was great. And that's a great time to bring up that like that scene was great. There's a lot of, I don't know, like Restart gets a lot of unique facial animations, and just like I still feel a lot of life in the show. It's definitely one of the more like, I don't know, it feels like there's more love poured into this show than like your typical adaptation of May, which I
definitely certain people who are working on it are all in on making facial expressions and shit, and like
it's good stuff.
The transformation sequences are also really good. Anytime somebody transforms, there's usually like a fully fleshed out transformation animation. Good shit. But yeah, like, I mean, the show itself, like, it's got really funny moments, parts where like the setup pays off in a big way, and memorable character interactions, and the main character is super memorable. But it definitely for me is like hit or miss on, there's just certain stretches of episode where it'll be like, all right, well, I don't care about this thing they're introducing, or like this scene is not funny, or this scene is like overly dramatic, but sometimes like I don't like the build up to what eventually is a solid payoff, It's like, oh, this scene is boring, and then something happens and I go, okay, well, I guess that was funny, but like, did I have to sit through that to get here? But it hasn't been bad. It's been watchable. There's been moments. I again thought episode 6 was really strong in terms of like dramatic storytelling.
Yeah.
The main thing that I didn't like was mostly just the blue-haired girls, knights, all the stuff about them, like attempted world building that I really didn't care about, because we've been breaking the meta of this world since the start, and the fact that the ants were not interesting enemies, they were just a weird thing.
The flies,
and
the flies.
It flies, whatever. They, like you said, had no real stakes in that scene. Like he obviously was gonna win, so. That whole subplot was like the murkiest, most like kind of why what was the idea?
It's funny because like the boss there wasn't even a heavenly king, and you can see them trying. They're like, oh, this guy is the best at aerial combat, so you've got to like get like a new thing for aerial combat. You can't just use the same old tricks. So you can feel them. He's like, okay, what can I do to like give a challenge to Seiya in some way? Right, aerial combat. He can fly. Okay, so what do I need? They're really fast, so I need to learn like arrow techniques, and he's able to pull off like this legendary 7 shots in a row or whatever, but he has to do it while flying, and
I just think it was missing a joke. It was missing
a joke. As I was reading that, I thought to myself, like the payoff of that scene is that the arrows he was shooting were actually homing birds, which had been previously introduced, and I get it, like the arrows were more than just normal arrows, like, oh my god, he's so powerful. That wasn't enough to like get a laugh out of me or to impress me. What I was hoping was that there's a whole conversation before Beelzebub or whatever gets killed, and it's that like, oh, there's no way he can reach me from the ground, like there's no way he can hit something this far. And so, yes, it is in fact true. Seiya has to like fly up to the stratosphere or whatever to like hit him with his bows, which is no problem. What I was like hoping was that it'd be something absolutely ridiculous, and here was my thought, that like what he had actually done, they're like, there's no way he can hit me with something this far, right? But like the arrows never miss. Okay, so like the arrows actually do miss. What I was hoping they would do is reveal that the arrows were never aiming for Beal. They were aiming for something beyond him. And like, here was my thought. What if the arrows were aiming at a fucking meteorite orbiting the planet, and had like somehow added gravity to it to bring down like a fucking meteorite on top of the guy from literal space, which would be like it would like be a what's the word? It would be like a surprise, it would go against this idea that like, oh, there's no way he can hit something this far away. Maybe he'd been like secretly working on like his range and like
even farther away.
Exactly. But like there was no joke payoff there. It was just oh, like the arrows were like birds, which again, it was good. It just wasn't enough to be some of the best stuff that the show's done so far, living quite up to its potential. So yeah, and when we're dealing with characters that are supposed to be like so unbelievably powerful, to get something that seems a little weak can be dispiriting. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, is there anything else you wanted to note about these episodes?
Not really, I suppose. I guess I'll just say I'm curious now that we're in the final couple episodes where the goddess plot is going now that we're at like the top level basically. There's perhaps a little room for a main character to grow. I think this all hinges on who the Demon King is, what gimmicks they give him. I'm not particularly interested in like this War Master plot with the baby, so I hope they do something cool with that. Because right now I'm not particularly sold on it. I hope they tell us why he's so strong or something. But I mean, overall, I guess just my impressions are I've been having a really good time. I think I've been enjoying it more than you overall. And these days, I can really feel like I'm kind of having to force myself to enjoy a show. But I'm not getting that with this one. Not very much. Most of it's just like a really enjoying watch. The writing is good enough to keep me engaged. And I'd be like, oh yeah, that is like a clever twist. I feel life. I feel intelligence in this project. And that's relatively rare. And I'm glad people decided to adapt this. It's good. It's not shitty. It's good. There we go. That's my thoughts.
I find myself feeling like, like you said, it's not shitty. It has life in it. It has some clever jokes. It has some memorable characters. And I definitely think like just the core idea of the show has been delivered on in a lot of good ways. It's not always operating as best as it could, but there's been plenty of good payoffs for the idea of the cautious hero. Some of them more straightforward, some of them more complex. And there's a lot of hot girls who are fun. The show does its fan service well and in interesting ways. There are great scenes, but there's also parts where I'm just bored or where the music is really obnoxious and the heavy-handedness, because the show is loud. Like, there's always a lot of loud music, compressed audio of characters yelling. Like, it could be a little bit headache-inducing sometimes, and if it's not the most funny or not the most engaging while it's also blasting so bombastically, I'm just kind of like, I don't care, But when it hooks me back in with the funny moments, then I'm like, all right, I don't hate this show. I can watch it. It's fine. I hope it ends nicely. Like, if it wraps up in an interesting way, it will definitely improve my score overall.
On the audio front that you mentioned, I just want to again say that like we were saying, like it feels like people are committing to this. They're giving like Restart facial animations that are unique and have energy to them and whatnot. And I continue to be impressed by Restarte's, how do you fucking pronounce her name? Restart. Her vocal performance. Her VA is doing good work, and I appreciate that. And that's one of the main components that feels life to it. Every other character is kind of boring and like exactly what you'd expect. But Restart, there's energy there. There's passion. And also, I still continue to love the example being set by the cautious hero. These dumb assholes who are like, no, man, just rush in and it'll be fine. Yeah. We're the heroes, right? No, fuck that. Prepare for your shit. Plan for your shit. I just got back from the gym moments ago thinking about the cautious hero and wanting to live up to his stalwart example. So another hero added to the hero wall for me. He's a classy guy. He's a great man, and I respect him. And I hope everybody else gets as much out of it as I do.
Well, all right, everybody. That's it for our impressions of Cautious Hero. We'll talk about the last 3 episodes after the show's over.
Looking forward to it.
You should check our description for links to all of our stuff. And, of course, the About page has the schedule of videos for the next, 4 or 5 videos, so you can plan out ahead to catch up on these shows before our videos come out, if you have to. And that's it. That's all. See you in the next one.
Bye, everybody. KHANTENT!